Long before Europeans showed up with itchy trigger fingers and shiny crosses, Grenada was home to the Kalinago people. Skilled fighters and sailors, they called the island Camerhind. Europeans would later rename it because apparently naming things after themselves was a hobby. Grenada is a small island country located in the southeastern Caribbean Sea at the southern tip of the Grenadines island chain, which forms part of the Lesser Antilles in the West Indies. It lies just north of South America, on the edge where the Caribbean Sea meets the Atlantic Ocean, west of Barbados and north of Trinidad and Tobago. Christopher Columbus spotted the island in 1498, but wisely decided not to land. Maybe he saw the Kalinagos sharpening their spears and thought, you know what? Let's call this a drive-by discovery. Europeans kept trying to settle. The English in 1609 gave up after meeting the Kalinagos. The French came in 1650 under Jacques du Parquet, and things got bloody fast. In late May of 1651, the French made their way to Duquesne and waited for nightfall. After confirming that the Kalinagos were there, the French decided to attack. They slaughtered a significant portion of the population. Several hundred Kalinagos were killed. Those who survived fled to the top of the cliff at Leaper's Hill, and with no other escape, around 40 Kalinagos jumped to their deaths over the cliff, later called Le Morne des Sauteurs, to a watery grave. Rather than being captured or subjected to enslavement, many Kalinagos, driven by desperation and resistance to colonization, chose to leap to their deaths. This tragic act is seen as a final, defiant stand against the European invaders. Later that same year, the French planted cocoa, coffee, and sugarcane. They also planted themselves into constant debt. Catholic priests blessed plantations, while enslaved Africans did the real work without blessings, freedom, or pay. During the 7 Years' War, the British said, "Nice island, we'll take it." The French grumbled but signed it away in the Treaty of Paris, 1763. Enslaved Africans noticed no matter which flag flew, their backs stayed bent. After the British took control of Grenada from the French in 1763 and again in 1783, free mixed-race people were heavily discriminated against, restricted in travel and land ownership, barred from public office, considered second-class citizens by the British elite. The British colonial government treated the French-speaking Catholic population with suspicion and often contempt. Here comes a hero, Julien Fedon, a free mixed-race French speaker inspired by the French Revolution, led a massive uprising. While Julien Fedon was a free mixed-race French speaker, wealthy, and even a slave owner, his rebellion wasn't about his personal freedom. It was about liberating Grenada from British rule and fighting for broader justice. In 1795, at midnight, Fédon and the rebels, leading a group of about 100 freedmen, some of whom guarded the entrances to the village to prevent anyone escaping, attacked. They forced 20 white residents from their beds and into the marketplace, where they were all shot and the bodies then cut up with cutlasses. His rebels controlled most of Grenada for a year. But in 1796, British reinforcements crushed the revolt. Fédon vanished into the mountains, either hiding or pulling the first Caribbean mystery ending. By the 1800s, the abolition movements were growing stronger in Britain. In 1834, slavery officially ended. Freed people celebrated, only to learn they had to go through apprenticeship, basically slavery with a different name tag. By 1838, full freedom finally arrived. In 1877, Grenada became a British Crown colony, translation, ruled directly from London, where men who had never seen a mango decided laws for people who lived under mango trees. By the 1950s, workers had enough of low wages and colonial bosses. Enter Eric Gary, a fiery labor leader. He organized strikes, survived attempts to silence him, and went from union man to politician. In 1967, Grenada became an associated state. Britain still handled defense and foreign affairs, but Grenadians ran their own government. It was like moving out of your parents' house, but still using their credit card. On February 7, 1974, Grenada declared full independence. Eric Gary became the first prime minister. Finally, after centuries of invasion, massacre, rebellion, and resistance, Grenada could raise its own flag. The island of spice had cooked up freedom. After independence in 1974, the Prime Minister Eric Gary liked power a little too much. Protests grew, his militia scared people, and by 1979 he was gone. In marched Maurice Bishop with promises of revolution and reggae speeches. Our Bishop made friends with Cuba and started building an international airport. The US looked at the runway and thought, that's not for tourists in sandals, that's for Soviet bombers. Prime Minister Maurice Bishop, who had come to power in 1979 through the New Jewel Movement Revolution, was put under house arrest by his deputy, Bernard Cord, and hardliners within his party. On October 19, 1983, a crowd of Bishop's supporters freed him from house arrest and marched him to Fort Rupert, now Fort George in St. George's. Soldiers loyal to Cord stormed the fort. Bishop and several of his ministers and supporters were captured. Bishop, along with others, including Unison Whiteman, Jacqueline Kreft, and Fitzroy Bain, was lined up against a wall and executed by firing squad. War is politics without rules. Politics is war with rules. Grenada suddenly went from island of spice to island of martial law. Nearby Caribbean nations panicked. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States called the U.S. for help. On October 25, 1983, U.S. Marines, Army Rangers, and even medical students invades Grenada. After a week of battles, Grenadian forces and Cuban allies surrendered. The U.S. called it a victory. Grenadians called it loud. By December 1984, new elections were held. Democracy returned, and Grenada celebrated what many called its second independence. The first one freed them from Britain. The second one freed them from each other. In the end, Grenada proved that small islands can make big headlines, sometimes twice in one decade. Independence? Oh, they like it so much. They had it twice.